Hello, you are listening to the Mets in the UK podcast. I'm back. No technical problems this week. We'll all be fine.
Oh, don't jinx it.
You've said it now.
I've said it. It's going to happen. We're all going to be fine. I am back from my travels. Just a reminder, as is always the case, you can catch the podcast on Spotify, YouTube, and all good podcast hosts every Tuesday. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, and X at Mets in the UK, or use the hashtag MITUK to get involved. It's the full house. We're all back. Joined this evening by Toria, Jo, and Tracey. How you doing, Toria?
I'm good, thanks. How are you doing?
I'm good. Jo, how about you?
I'm all right. I can't move very well. I went to the gym this morning and everything seems to have seized, but that could be something to do with my age. Get to that stage.
Let's get the deep heat out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Tracey, how are you doing?
I'm living the dream.
Fantastic.
What have you been doing?
Well,
I'll leave you hanging.
Anyway, let's move on.
Let's move on. Let's recap the last week. So the Mets took the series against the White Sox 2-1. Alonso, Young, Vientos hitting home runs throughout the series. Mets then went on to sweep the series against the Rockies. Lindor, Nimmo, Soto, McNeil, Alonso all getting home runs. Rockies in the series becoming 9-4-50, which is the first time that's happened since the late 1800s.
I remember it well.
I feel really sorry for the Rockies fans because it can't be fun watching them this year. Mets then last night played the Dodgers going into extra time, beating them 4-3. Lindor with a home run. I'm going to preface the chat just by saying it was a brilliant outing by Paul Blackburn, who hasn't pitched an MLB game in 283 days. Horrible spinal injury. Went to 3 different specialists before deciding, no, I'm not going to have something put in my back. He's come back from that, allowed no runs, 3 hits over 5 innings, 1 walk, 3 strikeouts over 77 pitches. Managed to strike out Ohtani. Got him to ground out with tying runs on the base. So really well done, Paul Blackburn. Great to have him back. Diaz blows the first save of the season after going 13 for 13. I'll let you argue how contentious that was, because I don't think Diaz blew that save. I think the umpires blew that save. There are lots of nodding heads. So the Mets were 5-1 over the last week. Their home record is impressive. They are 24-7 at Citi Field this year, first place in the NL East. And before I get your takes, I'm just going to quote Metsmerized for their great stat. So as of June the 2nd, 2024, the Mets were 11 games under 500 at 24-35. Since then, and we all know the reason why, London series, they are 103 for 60, a trip to the NLCS. They're 16 games over 500 this year and have the second best record in baseball at 38-22 so far this season. So it's been one hell of a week. Lots has happened. We are in a very, very good place. Thoughts, Tracey?
Loving life right now. It's actually great being a Mets fan at the moment. Having lived the roller coaster for 20 years now, I am making the most of this time. And as you say, London series, it all started then properly. We turned it round and we just continued that hype train ever since. And long may it continue. And Mets, come back in 2026, please.
Yeah, that would be very, very nice. London series will return next year. It is scheduled. We don't know yet who those teams are going to be, but yeah, we would all love it if the Mets came back. Jo, what's your thoughts on Mets last week?
Who do we need to bribe to get the Mets in London?
We've got contacts.
I suspect it needs to be Mr. Manfred, isn't it?
Well, not saying it.
Do you know what I've actually enjoyed about the last few weeks? I think in the past we could put out the odd big performance against the big teams, which we're still doing. Obviously, like last night we beat the Dodgers, but I'm quite enjoying how we're actually taking advantage of the rubbish teams for once. So the Rockies, I did feel a bit conflicted at one point, thinking, God, I feel so sorry for them. But at the same time, you have to be ruthless. All the other teams are ruthless against these poor teams. And before, when it was the Marlins, for example, as we mentioned before, we would always struggle. But this time, swept them aside, which I'm loving. They're ruthless and it's good.
Yeah, well said. Tor, you've watched every minute of every game, our little night owl. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what this morning counts as. It's not quite night owl.
Is it a late night or an early morning?
Early morning owl.
Yeah, early bird. I don't know. I'll do. Anyway, yeah, because I'm stupid. But yeah, I'll go through my usual kind of highlights of the week. I mean, firstly, and we need to give this a couple of minutes once I've gone through my bits and pieces, is I enjoyed all of Tom's updates throughout the trip. It was definitely a highlight for me having Tom there. I know we've had a few other of the UK contingent out there as well this week, but getting to kind of to live all that with Tom has been wonderful. Jared Young getting his homer in game 2 against the White Sox was lovely. David Peterson just continuing to be solid, you can just rely on it. Soto getting his back-to-back home runs. Thank you very much, because he's so unhappy. So I can't go a week without mentioning how wonderful Tyrone is, because once again, and I do it with good reason, because once again, he has been excellent. He's done some great hustle, some base stealing, incredible defense, multiple Keith classics in the booth.
He's been on one this week, hasn't he? Absolutely on one.
He's amazing. And I know that this will probably come up in the news bit, but Lindor getting his home run and overtaking Jeter on the shortstop record. I think just because people idolize Jeter and have him up on a pedestal, quite rightly, he was an excellent player, but our boy's there now. Give him the respect he deserves. Thank you very much. Obviously enjoyed sweeping the Rockies, as you mentioned, Joe. Something that, and I think Tracey, we probably said last week, I think we expected us to do our usual thing and drop at least one of them.
Yes.
And Clay Holmes in game 3 of that, giving us that length, going 7 innings, was excellent. You mentioned Blackburn. Last night was amazing. I said last week I wanted us to get off to a good start in that series and get the win. And that's absolutely what we did. I could have done without it going 10, but thank you very much. That again, and just, Otani, sit down. Thank you very much. It's just amazing. There were a couple of lowlights. I mean, not least Tom jinxing White Sox game 3. That was entirely your fault. And it not only did you jinx, it was a dreadful game. That was a dreadful game. And, we all know that I'm on the Griffin Canning train, and he did struggle a little bit a lot in that game. I was a low light for me, not so much the game, but a lot of people moaning about Paul Blackburn before the game last night. Give the poor guy a break. Come on, let him go and pitch, which he did and was outstanding. So it's just unnecessary. And my final low light, aside from umpires, which I'm getting tired of mentioning, was the bullpen use last night. How much we had to use last night, it concerned me a little bit. More for tonight and going on, but there's we've got a bullpen for a reason, so hopefully we'll scratch it out tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been great. I'm going to touch briefly on the trip. I did have a great time. Fantastic to meet Brandon Nimmo out of his car window just as I arrived at City Field. He was very lovely. Spotted the UK jersey and got chatting straight away like we knew each other, every bit as lovely as the stories you hear about him. The games themselves were great. I'm going to have to shout out a few people. Ultramet and Lisa and Steph for giving me some tickets for some amazing seats, great company throughout the games, Hector, KW, and everyone else who came to say hi or shared an inning. You know, it was all fantastic, as it always is over there. The third game against the White Sox, as you said, Tor, I didn't jinx it. I got very excited about the fact I was 3-0 on the trip. That wasn't me jinxing it. It's just I was very excited.
Yeah,
that's what I'm going to say there. It was a very wet game, so I'm not surprised Canning struggled. I had to move undercover. I was sat front row in the 300s, and I was soaked before the end of the first inning. So I moved. It was a lot worse than it looked. Having watched the game back, it was a lot worse than it looked on TV. So I'm not surprised he struggled. It was not pleasant. It was not nice baseball conditions. But yeah, you're right. That was a painful game to sit through, to say the least. Yeah, great trip, as is always the case. Also going to say, anyone going to City Field, go to Walk and Roll near Shake Shack. Get yourself the cinnamon bun.
I'm so excited.
It's the most ridiculous thing I think I've ever eaten in my life. It was so good. It was like every bit of cinnamon bun that's amazing, but then with like a crispy outside to it, and it was just it was incredible. I had one, which was like my weekly intake of sugar. I could have easily had another 3 or 4 and not felt bad about it. So yeah, if you're ever at City Field, go and get one of those. You will not regret it. The cinnamon bun egg roll is a stock one that they do throughout the year. The flavored ones change depending on who the opposition is. I can't remember what it was for the White Sox, but it did not sound pleasant, so I went for the classic instead.
Sounds so good. Sounds
I mean,
so
the food
good.
it's great at City Field anyway. It's always great, so
yeah,
you can't really go wrong. Okay, moving on to news from the last week, because there's been a lot that's happened over the last week. I'm going to start with the minors because the main Mets are doing fantastic. Our minor league players are also absolutely storming it. As an organization, all of our minor league affiliates lead the minors in strikeouts, fastball velocity, opponent batting average. Up until the last week of May, minor league affiliates went 21-2 over the last week, which is just ridiculous in itself. Ronnie Mauricio continues to excel in AAA. He's got a batting average of over 500 and is just absolutely crushing it on his return. He was named Minor League Player of the Week over the last week. There was a report before we went on air that he's due to be called up. Question marks around Vientos and possibly a hamstring. And that was the area he was holding. So I'm going to assume that it's a hamstring. Nothing's been confirmed by the Mets, as is always the case with this show. I will press end recording and there will be a tweet confirming the trade or the call up. So watch this space. Speaking of trades, the Mets called up right-hand pitcher Chris Devenski from AAA Syracuse, sending Brandon Waddell down after he came in to save the day when Griffin Canning was struggling. Then to call up Paul Blackburn, they optioned Devenski back to AAA on Monday. That's been it for comings and goings. Good news on the injury front. Brooks Raley is now facing hitters in live BP as he recovers from his Tommy John he had last year. So obviously wishing him well in that recovery. Mets average attendance to the 1st of June is up to 37,502, which is up from 24,609 this same time last year. That's an increase of 52.3% in the space of a year, which is incredible. Second only to the Athletics. So clearly, a new fan base is driving the Athletics charts. Mets doing very well on all accounts. I'm sure Steve is happy with increased gate. Edwin Diaz in the month of May pitched 11.1 innings, 14 strikeouts, 4 walks, 3 hits, an ERA of 0, 5 out of 5 saves. Incredible month for Diaz. Also an incredible month for Reed Garrett. He's got his ERA down to 0.7, tied for the major lead amongst pitchers with at least 20 innings, better than any closer in baseball. So very well done to Reed Garrett on that. The Mets have won 27 consecutive regular season games when Francisco Lindor hits a home run. That's the second longest streak of wins when homering for a player since the 1900s, behind only Carl Furillo between 1951 and 1953, who managed to hit 29. So Lindor is on a bit of a tear. As Toria said earlier in the show, he has now passed Jeter in the all-time shortstop home run list. Yankees fans were very quick to point out, we hit 7 of those as a DH, it doesn't count. So take that into attention if you want, but I think that's just more sour grapes.
They're so salty this year.
I know.
They're under pressure, you know.
Last on the Lindor news, we heard the story that Lindor visits each player individually at their locker post-game. I think we can all see where this is going. I think personally we're going to see more of these stories come out over the next few weeks. There's been a couple of players on their Instagram stories that have used the captain word. One of them going as far as to put a captain's hat over Lindor. Whether it will be a passing of the baton at the David Wright retirement ceremony or whether that will happen just afterwards, I think it's looking likely we're going to see a Lindor captaincy happen at some point in 2025. Oh, deep breath. That's a lot of news over the last week. Jo, any thoughts?
Any thoughts? No, actually, nothing is coming into my brain today on any of the news apart from Lindor's just smashing it. Lindor's just smashing it. And I think it could get to the point where hopefully it gets a bit psychological for the teams, because if he scores like a lead-off homer in the first inning, they're like, oh, game over, we're going home. Main hope and thought.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one, like especially the psychological effect. You know, I'm not a betting person, but you know, if you want to have a bet once Lindor hits a home run, by all means, feel free. You can be the curse. Tracey, what about you?
Lindor gave a great quote in yesterday's post-game presser.
Yeah.
He said that his home run didn't go as far as Ohtani's. His was probably 40 feet more than mine, but they all count the same. Which ties into a lot of what we say. Every game counts. It doesn't matter whether it's the first game of the season, the last game of the season, they all count equally. All home runs count equally. He just happens to be very good at it. And personally, as I'll be at the David Wright retirement game, I would love to see David Wright hand over the captaincy to Lindor. It'll just be like an icing on the cake moment for me, I think.
Yeah, I would like to see that happen. It would be a nice thing to do. At the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't happen, so that they don't sort of cheapen David's day by making it about Lindor. It wouldn't surprise me if it was like the next day whilst he's still there. But yeah, it'll be interesting either way. There's arguments for doing both, isn't there, on the day or the day after? So
next time I see my mate David, I'll ask him what
yeah.
It's gonna happen.
Will you stroke his arm again?
I might do, actually, yes.
Yeah, and then reminders once or twice.
Constantly. Yeah.
Well, we won't say what reaction I got when I first told you. Yeah, anyway. What happened immediately after that?
Yes. Guilty.
Moving on.
So, what's your thoughts on the news from last week?
I'll carry on. I'll have my say on the captaincy thing. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt that, like, fans and players alike, a lot of us, I'm not going to say most of the majority, from what I see anecdotally, a lot of us believe that Lindor should be our captain. I lean towards David's day being David's day. He deserves that day. However, from what things that he has said, it wouldn't surprise me if it would be his choice to do it that way. If it's his choice to do it on that day, I am all for it. I wouldn't like for the organisation to make it that day, if that makes sense. I think it would be wonderful. I think personally, I think it would be lovely if it's all at the same time, but only on only on David's terms, because it is absolutely his day, and I don't want anything to detract from that. But one way or another, I won't start thinking. I kind of got the song in my head there. One way or another, Lindor is going to be our captain. The minor league news, I think, I can't remember if it was last week or a couple of weeks ago, we touched on how lovely it is to be hearing positive things coming out of our minor league, our farm system, because we went for so many years where the only things we were hearing is that we were trading our best prospects. So it's really exciting. I think anyone that can get to go and watch any of our minor league teams should go and give them the support. You're clearly going to get a really good standard of baseball. And now, at least you know that there's a chance that you're going to see these boys come through and actually play for the big boy team, which we've not been able to say for a long, long time. So I think that is really encouraging. And yes, it looks very likely that Mauricio is going to come up, and I expect it will be for Vientos going onto the IL after that pull-up. And I think, that was probably, he'd just come into the game pretty much. Obviously, went to sprint off, and it happens. I feel sorry for him, but it gives Mauricio a chance to come up and see what he can do. The only concern there is, I believe Mauricio is then out of options. So I don't quite know what happens when Vientos is fit, but that's something to worry about another day. I've probably missed stuff. I'm sorry, but yeah. There you go. My thoughts.
Just finished. I reckon in your situation there, it might be Acuna that then would go down because he's still got options in that situation.
Yeah,
if I was to hazard a guess.
And he's not been playing every day either.
No, he's not been playing badly either. I think it's just
he hasn't.
It's just the fact of we don't want to lose Ronnie on a DFA and someone else claims him.
Exactly.
Speaking of losing people on DFA, did you see we DFA'd Azakar and would you look at that? He's ended up at the Braves.
yeah.
Of course he has.
And it looks like Urena's going to be back against us tonight as well. Well, it's at least the Dodgers have picked him up and he's going to be there. So whether he'll get in the game or not is a different matter.
You mean the Braves that are 10 games behind us currently? Those Braves?
That's the one, yeah.
Braves. Yeah.
Sorry.
Taking out outcasts.
Fantastic. Okay, so we'll move on to the usual part of the show. As always, if you're enjoying this, please like, subscribe, share, comment, all that good stuff so we can bring this to more people across the UK, Europe, and beyond. We see you, our regular listeners and commenters. We appreciate each and every single one of you. Heart emojis. We've asked for your questions, as we always do. We've had some really good ones this week. Really got me thinking. Jeff has asked the question, what other stadiums have you been to other than City or would like to visit? Tor.
I have a list of my long. So I've been to my first game actually was at Nats Park, and I've been to Fenway, which was just so obviously following on from Fenway, the next one that I absolutely have to do is Wrigley. Like I'm desperate to get to Wrigley Field. So my brother and I have a trip planned for next Easter. I don't even like when the schedule comes out. If our Metsies happen to be there at Easter, that would just be wonderful. Thank you very much, please, if the baseball gods are listening. But if not, we're going to go to Chicago and we're going to go to Detroit. So obviously, I'm going to go to all three ballparks. If there are games on, I'll go to a game, no matter who it is. Otherwise, I'll go and do a tour. We also have a trip planned to base ourselves at LA so that I can go to Anaheim and watch the Angels. Obviously, I suppose I'll go to see the Dodgers while we're there. It's about an hour to go and to go to San Diego, so we shall go there as well. And then we're going to have a couple of nights in San Francisco so that I can go up there. Just because, you know, my brother wants to go back to LA. I want to do baseball again. Like, if we can make it so that it ties in with Mets being there, great. If not, I want to go to the ballparks. I want to go and see them. I mean, ultimately, I want to see all of them. The ones kind of after that in kind of priority order, I'd say a PNC and Camden Yards, but eventually I want to get to as many as possible. But I have plans in place currently for the 2 in Chicago, 1 in Detroit, and then kind of the 2 in LA and San Diego and San Francisco.
Cool.
Lots of baseball.
13:30. Jo, what about you?
All right for some, isn't it? Where have I been? I've been to Marlins Park. I've been to Fenway, and I'll take this opportunity to big up their City Connect again, just to rile some other people. And I'm also going to count the London Stadium as ballpark. It's been there 3 times. Counting that, aren't we? And I would love to go. I'd like to go to Denver. Poor old Rockies, but basically because it looks cool and they've got a really nice beer. And I'd also
a really nice City Connect.
Yeah, maybe debatable. And I'd also like to go to San Fran and San Diego just because of that West Coast vibe. I'm not sure about LA. And Tracey, you told me Camden Yards is good for beer too, didn't you? Not that everything revolves around beer, but a lot of it does. So, I've been seeing. I can't compete with Toria's trips though.
I know, she's everywhere, that girl.
I know, jet setter.
How about you, Tracey?
I was lucky enough to go to Shea before it was replaced by City. I've been to Camden Yards and Citizens Bank, and both surprised me in that they are really nice ballparks. The crowds were actually very gracious, and I didn't get too much abuse. I just got the typical, hold on, you're a British woman, why are you a Mets fan type comment. On my wish list is probably Busch Stadium, PNC Park, Wrigley, and Fenway.
Very good. Outside of City, I have been to Yankee Stadium. Whoa. I had the New York pass, and the tour was in like a freebie.
They have to give it away for free, don't they?
I'll go, I'll tick it off, and then I don't have to suffer for watching a game. I had the rudest tour guide ever who, when I asked him where the bullpen was, because I couldn't see it in the concourse, he looked at me shocked and was like, "You know what a bullpen is?" And I was just like, "Yeah."
Yes.
Would not recommend Yankee Stadium. It's a hole. On my wish list, though, I do want to go to PNC. I would love to go to Fenway. And Jeff, I want to join you out in Arizona. I want to go to the Diamondbacks. I want to be in that pool in the outfield, watching the game.
What a vision.
Absolutely.
Living my best life. I'm not going to lie. It's on my wish list. So
yeah, Jeff, that's all over to Arizona, mate. Sort it out.
Yeah.
Jeff, book out the suite. Come on, we'll all be there. We'll all
book out the pool.
Yeah.
There we go. Question number 2 came from CJ, our Mets friend from Belgium. He asked the question about, do the Mets change their jerseys each game? I actually know the answer to this question, so I'm just going to jump in and answer it for CJ. Yes and no is the answer. So what happens is the Mets do have like a large stock of jerseys that each player has. They are pre-made, and if you do the tour at Citi Field, they take you behind the scenes, and there is a room that is just full, absolutely full to the brim of jerseys for each player. Like City Connect, Road, Home, all of them are in there. Obviously there's special ones. So when it's Jackie Robinson Day, that one will only get worn the once for that one day. And usually they're then auctioned off for like the Amazing Foundation, or they go into the grab bags if they don't get sold. They try and recycle jerseys once if they can, but obviously if someone slides into home plate and tears it on the gravel, then it's gone. Or if they can't wash out the stains, it's gone. So it's not 162 jerseys over the course of a year, but yeah, there are quite a lot of them in this room on the tour. You can pick them up on eBay, but you can also pick them up through the Amazing Foundation, as well as the City Field through the grab bag window if you are particularly lucky with your $40, or you can just go and buy one if you want to splash the cash on.
I'm never lucky on the blooming grab bag.
No, every time I've done the $40 window, I've ended up with a plaque with some sand in it.
My
or a
rosin bag.
Smith bat. So
My rosin bag I couldn't get through customs.
I've never dared do it because I usually take carry on because I go to the game, come home, and so. But I have said I'm doing it when I go in August. I'm taking a checked bag, so I'm going to risk it because I guarantee. Like,
if you win a bat, like, what do you do with that?
Exactly.
You put it diagonally in your suitcase.
Exactly. So I'm like, now I'm going to have like a checked case. I'm going to take the risk. I'll still I'll get something tiny that I would have been able to get on carry on. That would be my luck. But I've just never dared do it because I'm like, what happens? I can't get it home.
Yeah, you'll end up with a base pad or something.
Yes, that would be amazing.
I'm sure
there's a hat
somewhere in here.
definitely room.
Maybe we need to ask a question like what people have won on that. If it's something really cool.
Yeah, if you've won something cool, let us know in the comments down below. Have you won anything cool from the City Field grab bag window? Next question comes from AC Shelby. Are there any sports teams anywhere else in the world that can rival your Mets fandom? Being from the UK, we can assume you follow a football club. If so, how did they do this past year? So, Tracey, what about you?
I'm not a football fan. I'm a rugby girl. Sale Sharks for me.
Does that rival your Mets fandom?
No, it doesn't. But I do watch them every week when they play. But yeah, I would say if I had to have a team, it would be my dad's team, which is Sunderland, who have just been promoted back up to the Premiership. So he's a happy boy.
Okay. Jo?
Well, we'll ignore what Tracey said, the last team, because I am a Newcastle United fan, and I've had the best season ever in this past season because we finished 5th, Champions League. I mean, won a trophy the first time in a million years. So, yeah. And you know what, though? It's getting quite close with the whole Newcastle and Mets thing in terms of fandom levels, because I've probably seen the Mets nearly as many times as I've seen Newcastle live, which is silly because it's not obviously as far, but yeah, so... But I reckon 50-50 split for me on those two teams these days, which is cool.
Okay. Toria?
I adore my football team. So if you're comparing like my passion for them, like it's equal. I love my terrible Stoke City. But I've said this a million times, right? The reason that I love the Mets the way that I do is because there are so many parallels between the Mets and Stoke, or at least they were back in the day.
They've got like that.
Yeah, exactly. The difference is obviously, when I still lived 180 miles away, I still had my season ticket home and away every week. So I watch my football team, but that's a weekly thing. So I love them just as much, but obviously my Mets fandom takes a little more dedication because it's every night. So yes, my Stoke City, and we just about fought off relegation from the Championship this year. We just stopped laughing, Tom. It's not even funny. It was very painful, not unexpected. I wouldn't be surprised if we get relegated next year, but we have actually got a half decent manager now who has the summer transfer window to try and sort stuff out. Hopefully.
There we go. I have a football team, so I follow Norwich, born and raised. My local team. If I was to compare it to my Mets fandom, kind of like what Tor said, like because the games are only once a week, it doesn't consume anywhere near as much. Like I love the teams equally, but the Mets consume so much more of my time. Not in a bad way, just like the football side of things. It's like a 2-minute read every day of what's going on. If there's a game on a Saturday, it's not a big commitment. So
And our transfer windows and stuff are short, you don't have as many movements and those kind of things.
It's quite different, isn't it, in that sense?
It's kind of like when Americans watch American football, there's a lot less like upkeep required. You can be a bit more backseat about it. So yeah, Norwich are an equal love, but not as much of my time. Last year we finished mid-table in the Championship, which is the second division in the UK. A season of mediocrity, which is very common for Norwich. Long may it continue, is all I'll say.
And the only other thing I'll say is obviously, I mean, I kind of like my sports quite a lot. Not that any come close to Stoke or Mets, but obviously I'm very keen on my New York Rangers, New York Giants, New York Knicks, my F1s. I love my Max. I love watching the tennis. So we have Jack Draper to get behind and Yannick Sinner and E17. Yeah, I would say like sport in general takes up a lot of my energy. And much as I love Rangers particularly, I'm all in when hockey season's on. Mets and Stoke all day, every day. Thank you very much.
There we go. Last question was from Rob. He's asked it in 2 parts. So the first part was, what's the rotation going to look like once Minaya and Montas are back off the IL? What are the thoughts there? I'll just really open this on up to the room. What do we think?
It's going to be a toughie, isn't it? Someone's going to have to make some tough decisions. I wouldn't like to put my money on it.
I think McGill's got option still. So I think he may be the casualty. I think he'll end up going down. Blackburn's going to go to the pen. And I think Blackburn himself is already kind of is open to that. I think that's what he expects. Be it Minaya, Senga, Montas, Peterson, Holmes, Canning. I think they'll go 6. Yeah, they'll go 6 for Senga. And then Blackburn will go to the bullpen and McGill. Just because of, I don't know, McGill would be more of a long reliever, and we've got Buto there. Blackburn would be doing that. I'm not sure, given that he's got the option. I think I would quite happily see him stay in the bullpen, but I suspect he may be casualty purely because he's got the option. I think he's most vulnerable.
Yeah, I think it's also worth pointing out that this is a few weeks away from happening still. You know, Minaya is yet to even do a rehab stint of any sort of note. Montas is still, if I remember correctly, still in Brooklyn. He's not progressed any further than that yet. So we are weeks away from this happening. Obviously, I'm not wishing it, I'm not jinxing it, but something else could happen to one of our starters between now and then that's a whole different conversation altogether. But I think everything that Tor's just said there adds up and seems like the sensible thing, assuming that everyone is fit and well, which of course we all wish is the case. And the second part of Rob's question is an interesting one. Who are the Mets All-Stars going to be? We are approaching All-Star game. It's not far off. We'll be here before we know it. Tracey, what's your thoughts? Who do you think our All-Stars are going to be? You're on mute, Trace.
You said no technical problems.
I
You
did.
jinxed it.
I did.
There we go. I think Lindor, without doubt. Pete, probably, and Diaz.
Okay. I'm going to follow on from that and just, Mets fans need to get out and vote for Lindor. Like
Yes,
over the last few years, I'm not throwing this at anyone in particular. Mets fans in general have not voted enough for Lindor at the All-Star game. We need to get behind our boy, vote for him, and make sure he is in that. The fact he's not been in it as a Met yet is just disgraceful. Absolutely disgraceful. Jo, who do you think the All-Stars are going to be?
I'm going to just echo what you said. I don't even bother if no one else is in it, as long as Lindor gets in this year, because I just think, please, he just deserves it so much. So I just want Lindor to be there. I think Pete will probably be there too, but yeah, please let's get Lindor in there. We have to campaign and march on the streets, and we can do that. We should, because he deserves it.
Tor, any others?
No, and I think Soto will miss out, just because he's not going to have Yankee fans behind him, and he's not. I just think that he's obviously he's not kind of done enough to get on the kind of national radar with people thinking that he absolutely has to be there, which is, it's fine. Same as you guys have said, Lindor has to be there. He has to be there. There's a couple that are going to be fighting for that spot, but he's elite. It's ridiculous that he's not been there yet. And Pete should get in just because everyone wants to see his bombs.
That moment last night, which should get Lindor on its own, right at the end of the game where he made that massive diving stop, because the Dodgers were going to win the game if that got past him. And that was amazing.
100%.
On that play alone.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw Senga into the mix on this because he leads the National League in ERA. Last time I checked as well, David Peterson was number 5 in National League ERA. He's a potential dark horse as well, not for starting, but lower down if they want him.
The thing we have to remember is ultimately it's a popularity contest, and that's the problem. And that's why there's no question Senga should be there. No question. Though I didn't say him because I don't think he'll get the popularity vote. People just, and it's sad, but that's unfortunately the way it is.
Yeah. Who do you think should be the Mets All-Stars? Any of the other questions we've answered, let us know down below in the comments. What are your thoughts? We've gone well over time, but there's been so much happening this last week. I'm not surprised. As is always the case, just to finish things off, week ahead, we've got 3 more games against the Dodgers because it's a 4-game series on the road. Thursday, UK friendly. Technically they're all UK friendly if you are crazy enough to wake up at 3 a.m. and watch Mets baseball. However,
Toria.
Thursday's game is UK friendly. We've then got 3 road games against the Rockies. Sunday's game against the Rockies is also UK friendly. If you're not watching the video, Toria just mouthed, "Thank God." Waking up at 3 a.m. So we've got 6 games to come over the next week before our next pod. Very quickly, how many of those are we going to win and lose, Tor?
We are going to take another 2 from the 3 remaining against the Dodgers. I think we may drop tonight. Sorry, Tyler. And we've got to take the Rockies games again. And the reason that I was moaning about those is because the first 2 Rockies games are stupid, ridiculous times that are quite literally the middle of the night. So they're neither here nor there. 3 o'clock starts all day, every day. Thank you very much. I will take that. Midnight starts I can deal with. 1:40 and 2:20 something. I mean, really? What am I supposed to do with that? Anyway, there we go.
Every normal person.
Yeah, I may just actually try and get some sleep. That'd be nice.
Okay. So Toria's going 5-1 over the next week. Jo, what about you?
I think we'll split the series with the Dodgers, and then I'm going to continue on the theme of us crushing the weaker teams this time, and we'll sweep those Rockies again. So
4-2 for Jo. Tracey?
I'm going to just copy Tor, I think.
Okay. I'm going to copy Jo. I think 4-2. I think we're likely to split with the Dodgers. I just think it's inevitable, but
I'll take 4-2, and the key thing is that we don't lose this series to the Dodgers, because even though we're only in June, we split this series. We've got the tie break if we need it.
Yeah.
So I think that's the key. So if it's we split the series, I'm not mad about it, but I think as a statement, I'd like for us to take 3 of the 4.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so as of now, there's still no official announcement of Ronnie Mauricio. So I'm going to press end recording just so we can all get that tweet notification from the Mets. We will be back same time next week on Tuesday to recap all things Mets from the last week. As always, thank you to Toria, Jo, and Tracey for joining, and let's go Mets.
Let's go Mets.